Transparency is critical here. That's why these debates have been designed with input from a broad group of journalists in Arizona representing urban and rural communities. Thank you to voters across Arizona who have submitted questions for this debate. We reviewed all of them to make sure every voice is heard. However, no candidates have been given advance access to any of the questions. With that, let's introduce our Republican candidate, Kathleen Wynne. Welcome, and thank you for being here. You have 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you. I'm prepared to honor hardworking Arizona voters by being exactly who they elect me to be, a conservative Republican. I am a fierce defender of American values, conservative priorities, and the fundamental liberties that our founding fathers felt were so important. I won't sell out for optics, and I won't participate in political theater. The establishment needs to end its reign in Congress. I am one of you. I am a wife, a mother, a grandmother, successful businesswoman, an advocate for children. I want to serve the people of Southern Arizona in CD6, not the elite. The stakes are high, and the ideologies between me and my opponent are great. We need representatives who will stand strong and make hard choices. Shut down the government until the border is secure, reduce spending, and the facilitation of illegal immigration that is out of control. I'm Kathleen Wynne, running against Juan Ciscomani because we need to return to conservative values for God and for country, as our founding fathers intended.
Kathleen Wynne, this is your second run for Congress in this Southern Arizona district. In the primary last time, you got about 19% of the vote, while your opponent, Juan Ciscomani, got about 47%. Now that he's served a term, why do you think the voters should change their minds and support you this time?
Juan Ciscomani ran last time as a conservative Republican, but his voting record has him be a bipartisan moderate, which he proudly has been touting. He is not representing as a conservative Republican and votes more with the Democrats than he does with the Republicans. Also, last time there were 5 people in the race. And if you add up the 3 conservatives, if we were one person, we would have beat Juan Ciscomani. I firmly believe that this district is a conservative district, that the Biden policies have failed so miserably that people want to restore order, make our district safe, but make the state safe and make the country safe. Juan Ciscomani has not had the political will to shut down the border, to stop spending, and he put other countries, Ukraine, ahead of securing the border. I think as he's been voting, I've heard more and more from people in the district who are unsatisfied with the work that he's doing. And so I think it's time for us to have an opportunity to fight back and to do the things that really matter to the people that live in this district.
Can you point to a specific bit of legislation where you would have voted differently from Congressman Ciscomani?
Yes. So there's many different things. One of the things that Congressman Ciscomani did was he did not restore jobs and benefits for pilots who refused the COVID vaccine. I would have voted for that. It's one thing to say I'm going to secure the border, but it's another thing to take actions in a correlate with that. Recently, the omnibus bill that was just recently passed, Congress has a slight majority, the Republicans do. Before they gave 1 nickel to Ukraine, they could have put something in to secure the border. I would have made sure that before we spent any more foreign dollars, that I would have done that.
Last week, former President Trump was convicted of 34 felonies in a New York courtroom. What was your reaction to that?
I watched the trial. I believe that this is a political persecution. I don't believe they changed so many rules so that they could prosecute him. I believe that he will appeal it. I believe it'll be overturned. I think this is an attack, an electioneering, and it is one party attacking the lead person who's actually winning in the polls. And I think the American people see that based on the amount of money President Trump has received and based on the outpouring of support for him.
You know, what was your reaction to President Biden's announcement this week that he would limit the number of people who were able to claim asylum when they cross the border into the United States?
I think it's President Biden's comments this week are a little too late. I think we have 10 million people in our country and we don't know who they are. We have over 165 countries. We are still funding the illegal immigration that's pouring into Arizona. And because of what Texas has done, Arizona is now the tip of the spear. We have more crime and more people coming in every day. And how do we trust people when we don't even know who's in our country? So I would say that his words are cheap.
The federal government has been giving aid to Pima County in order to support Casas Elitas, which is a program that helps the asylum seekers who have crossed the border and been released from Border Patrol custody to move on to their next destination. Do you support the federal funding for the Casa Elitas program?
I do not support the federal funding at this time for any of the programs that are receiving money. What we are doing is we are incentivizing people to come from all over the world. We are giving them benefits for breaking our laws, and we are using our resources and depleting our resources in our country to support illegal immigration. We don't know who's here. We don't know from where they've come. We don't know if they're really even asylum seekers, and their court dates are 10 years out. This is a travesty that's happening, and I think it is intentional and willful, and it should be stopped.
There are roughly 580,000 people who are brought to the United States as children who are in the DACA program. Should these folks be given a path to citizenship or some kind of permanent legal status, or should they be deported to their country of origin?
There are over 120,000 missing illegal immigrant children right now. I wish that we really cared about the children that are coming to our country. I think it is, again, a mistake to think that we are doing anything good by these children. Children are being raped, children are being mutilated, children are being drugged, and then we say that we care about these children. What we need to do is secure our border and make sure that we know who's coming in our country, identify who's here now, and I believe that we should deport people. Children should not be unaccompanied coming into our country, and the other thing that we have happening is children are being born every day with drug addictions, and their parents are being put in jail, and so we now have all these babies that are here that now get citizenship because they're born in America. We have a mess, and it needs to be corrected.
So for the Dreamers, you're saying...
The Dreamers that were here prior to this, that's a different group of people. But to declare someone a Dreamer just because they've crossed the border, I think that you have to reset these policies, because we are, again, incentivizing millions and millions of people coming here that we cannot continue and sustain. Our cities can't take it. We don't have the resources. Why is the federal government subsidizing these people? Why are they allowing to come into our communities? They're murdering our citizens. They're replacing our citizens. Over 200 people a day are dying from fentanyl poisoning. At what point do we say this is a terrorist act and it needs to stop?
So the folks in the DACA program, though, the ones who have now registered with the government, the Dreamers, your thought of their, how should we resolve their status?
I'm not against the Dreamers. That, you know, there's been Dreamers here in this country for a very long time. They've gotten many benefits. There's programs. The question becomes, when did we open the floodgates to come into this country, and how do we take care of them? And are they really asylum seekers? I don't think we know who's here. I want to help everybody that we can possibly help, but we don't have the resources, and at some point we cannot be the place where everyone in the world comes to solve their problems. I want to help everybody. I spent 4 years on a governing board, and we helped many DACA students. I'm proud of that work. You want to build good quality people, but I'm not so confident that it's prisons and thugs that are coming into our country and not innocent children.
What about the wall? Do you think the United States should build a wall along the entirety of the U.S.-Mexico border?
I think that we can have many walls. In terms of a physical barrier, I think they help deter people coming across. But we have drones, we have electronics. There's places that we can't build the wall. The Tohono O'odham Nation in our own state creates a funneling effect because they own that land, I believe, on both sides of the border. So we can be smart, but we have to do a better job of protecting our border. We do not have operational control of our border right now. The Sinaloa cartel has operational control. And without a border, you really don't have a country. So whatever we need to do to reclaim that land and to shut down the criminal enterprises that are operating in our state and killing our citizens, we need to do that. That is the highest priority that this Congress should have right now.
I want to shift away from immigration to abortion. And let me ask you, would you support a national ban on abortion? If so, at what stage of pregnancy?
As we know, the United States Supreme Court remanded this back to the states when Roe v. Wade was overturned. I believe that the states should be making this decision. We already had this federal ban, or we already had this in the federal courts, and I trust that the U.S. Supreme Court is the best place to resolve this. You know, what they did to remand it back to the states, that each individual state has state rights. The federal government, I do not want involved in our medical decisions and our medical choices.
Today, Republicans in the Senate blocked a bill that would have prevented states from passing laws limiting access to contraception. Do you think that should be a federal law to allow, to require states to allow access to contraception?
I don't, again, I think the states need to determine what they want to do. I don't like the idea of federal funds being used to facilitate abortion or federal funds being used to facilitate birth control. There are many other ways that people can get access to that, and every time you involve the federal government, you create a bigger government, you create bloat. Our government is out of control, and we don't even understand where most of the money that we're spending is going. So to add another layer to federal government over this issue, I think is a big mistake.
Let's talk about some of the federal entitlement programs. So what strategies would you pursue to preserve Social Security for future generations?
Social Security is a big problem. I am now eligible for Social Security. I'm not taking it yet. I believe that Social Security is in serious need of an overhaul. That does not mean we want to end it, but in 11 years, we will not have enough money to fund the people that will be eligible for it. So there's some hard choices that are going to have to be made. Be very clear, I do not want to end Social Security, but we have to find a way to continue to fund it. In 11 years, we will have to reduce the amount that people receive to 83% unless we do something now. And Congress has a way of kicking the can down the road, and so that's why we have to address this issue now. But I support Social Security for the hardworking Americans that have paid into it their whole lives.
So what do we need to do in order to preserve the program?
I think we need to make sure that we're not giving Social Security to people that are dead, that aren't entitled to it, that are not part of the system, and that we also have to the cost of living and everything else, there's a lot of adjustments. There's a lot of abuse in Social Security, so again, it's an accountability. There's a lot of work that Congress needs to do to examine where things are going and what's happening. Social Security is something that if you have been working your whole life, and I did, you were promised this. I don't think we can break our promises to the American people, but we're going to have to make sure that our funding source and that how it's being set up is sustainable.
Should we reduce benefits for people, younger people in their 20s or 30s?
That could be on the table to reduce benefits, but I don't think that that's the immediate solution that we go to. I really believe that we need to make sure that people are working, that they're paying their taxes, that they're paying their Social Security benefits, and that we have accountability. I want to make sure that if you work hard and you reach a certain age, you get the entitlement that you are promised.
Should we move to allowing people to deposit a portion of their Social Security into the stock market or other investments?
I think when you start to pick winners and losers in government, I'm really against government subsidies. I think that it creates a lot of problems and it creates a lot of corruption. We've seen it with the COVID shots. We saw it when we picked out certain pharmaceutical companies. I believe that that is not a good way to go.
What about Medicare? Same question. How do we preserve that for future generations? That seems to be in more financial trouble than Social Security.
There's a lot of Medicare abuses. There's Medicare fraud. I worked at the Attorney General's office. We had a whole division for Medicare frauds and Medicaid fraud. I think, again, what people, I'm eligible for Medicare. I'm on Medicare right now. But the quality of doctors and what is happening in the medical system, Obamacare was a disaster. And Donald Trump put some corrections in that made a big difference, but still not enough. There was still more work to be done. And I believe Medicare, we need to have some kind of system to support people, especially as they age. But right now, you have lack of accountability. You have money being spent. You have money going to people that really shouldn't be receiving it. And we keep expanding those programs. And we have over 10 million illegal immigrants in this country. And there's abuses in every program that we have. And the government has to start to make some hard decisions about who really gets things and who doesn't. We are not Santa Claus to the world.
What about eliminating traditional Medicare and allowing private insurance companies to take care of the elderly?
I think the only way you can allow private insurance companies to take care of the elderly is if you do it on a proposal basis, and it would have to have strict oversight. I don't think you just allow the insurance. I think part of the reason we're here is that insurance companies kind of abused the system and pushed for Obamacare, and it was a big payout to insurance companies.
Yeah, you mentioned some criticism with Obamacare, and the Republican Study Committee has proposed doing away with the Affordable Care Act in its entirety. I wonder, one of the elements of that is the fact that insurance companies are required to offer plans to people with pre-existing conditions. Would you support doing away with those protections for people with pre-existing conditions?
No, I think if people have pre-existing conditions and they've gone through the steps that they need to do, we need to protect people that have those. You can't start to kill off people that have certain medical conditions. I think we have to be humane, and we have to do everything we can to preserve people's lives. At the end of the day, the insurance industry should not be making extreme profits at the expense of Americans' health and their welfare.
And what do you think about the exchanges that were created through Obamacare to allow people to purchase insurance without having an employer provide it for them?
The exchanges are expensive. I had there was a time when I didn't have insurance and had to wait to get, Medicare, and it's very expensive. And we call it the Affordable Care Act. There's nothing affordable about it. It's very unaffordable, and especially with inflation right now, people are forgoing having insurance so they can put food on their family's table. So if we're going to do these insurance I'm sorry, I forgot the word, but these networks for people to have insurance, I think it's important that we make it affordable and we make it so people can come together, maybe if they're individuals, and buy as a group, even though they may not be an organized group.
And by way of making it affordable, would that be providing government subsidies or regulating what insurance companies can charge, or what would be
I think I would like to see a regulation on what on caps on what people can charge. But again, I would tell you that to jump into the insurance world and seeing what's happening with medical cases, one of the reasons that costs got driven up is that people were suing their doctors every time something went wrong, and you had these huge settlements. And so you've got a medical industry right now that has been weakened through COVID and the healthcare system in and of itself.
Let's switch to international issues. Congress recently passed a $61 billion military aid package for Ukraine as it attempts to thwart the ongoing Russian invasion. You brought this up earlier. Would you have supported that package?
I would not have supported the package to Ukraine without securing our border. We had an opportunity to do something for the United States of America before we put Ukraine first. We put Ukraine and Ukraine's needs ahead of the people of the United States of America. So I would have probably not done as much for Ukraine. We've been providing munitions. We have been in this war. The really sad thing is that so many Ukrainian men and women who are serving in the military have passed away, have been, the death rate for the Ukraine people in the military is extremely high. We don't hear about it anymore. We keep saying we want to fund it, and Russia is clearly winning that conflict. And neither Russia or Ukraine are allies, and China has come in to help Russia. So I feel it's a proxy war that we should really take a step back and see, is the best advice to continue to fund it or to try to negotiate some kind of agreement between Ukraine and Russia. We did not sign on to do this infinitely. So I think it's important that we look to see what can we do to resolve this. And there was a great opportunity for the U.S. to put our border first, to put our citizens first, and we didn't do that.
That military aid package also included $26 billion in aid to Israel and about $1 billion in humanitarian relief for the Palestinians in Gaza. Would you have supported that package?
I believe that Israel is an ally, and that Israel has been one of our longest-standing allies, and that what happened on October 7 was an act of war by Hamas. And Hamas, after they did that, then when Israel fought back to preserve and save their country, then they said, oh, they wanted it to stop. When you annihilate innocent people, women and children, and people that had no idea what it was coming, there was no declaration of war, but by that very action, they did. And I think that we as Americans needed to stand with Israel. They've been a longtime ally. They support us. And I thought that that aid, and they've told us that they don't even ask for our aid. We are standing with them. The Palestinians who are voted for Hamas to be this government entity are now paying the price for those choices. And it is sad. The whole situation, any time when your conflicts have to be solved by warfare, it is not the right, it's not good for the humanity and for the people of those countries.
We've got about a minute left. Let me ask you, do you believe that the Earth is experiencing climate change, and do you agree with the Biden administration's efforts to counter it through green energy strategy?
It's getting hot in Arizona right now, and I believe that we have climates that change. I believe that we have different things. To throw money into trying to regulate it or have special programs, I am not a supporter of that. I believe that we have so much government waste. If a particular area, there's a lot of tornadoes in Chicago where I grew up, there's many different weather patterns and things that happen. We've got computers, I think we can solve a lot of problems without investing billions of dollars into climate change.
One more question, because we have a little bit of time, about half a minute remaining. Actually, I think we're to closing statement. So if you would, you have 1 minute for a closing statement here.
Thank you. I'm running for Congress because we need intelligent leadership in Congress. This is a critical time in our history. I don't think anyone, if you had asked 4 years ago, would the borders be wide open? Would we have 10 million people in our country that we didn't know were going to be here, and that we would be funding wars all over the world, that we would have said that that was a good idea? We need serious-minded people who are not politically driven, but want to serve the people. I believe that I am best suited for this job at this time, and that's why I'm running for Congress in CD6. I would ask you to go to WIN for Arizona, WINN for Arizona, and check out our page, and also to let you know that Arizona needs a win. I'm Kathleen Wynne, running for Congress in Arizona CD6, and I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
We do have time for one more brief question.
Okay.
Do you believe President Biden won Arizona in 2020?
I believe that that the election in 2020 had some serious flaws. We had people that voted twice in both New Mexico and Arizona and the Navajo Nation. We had other things that were not normal. That being said, I did an analysis, and Mark Kelly got the most votes out of everyone, 80,000 more than his Democrat delegation, and 50,000 more than Joe Biden. And if you believe that happened, then Joe Biden won.
All right. Well, that is all the time we have for our one-on-one conversation with Kathleen Wynne. Thank you for joining us today. She is the Republican candidate for Arizona's Congressional 6. As a reminder, the Arizona primary election is on July 30, and early voting starts on July 3rd. All registered voters can participate in the primary, including independents. There are a lot of offices up for election this year, so we'll keep hosting debates through the summer and fall. Head to arizonamedia.org to see a list of every local media partner, plus upcoming debates and where you can find them on TV, radio, and digital platforms. You can also see the full debate schedule, learn more about clean elections, and submit questions for future debates by heading to azcleanelections.gov. On behalf of our partners at Clean Elections, the Arizona Media Association, Reister, and Bitfire Studios, thanks for watching.
Under Joe Biden, millions of illegals have flooded into the country, bankrupting our hospitals, taking housing, and driving down wages. Yet radical Ruben Gallego supports amnesty for millions of illegals and allowing them to vote, opposed efforts to secure our border. Gallego even said
a border wall's not needed
and called it a
stupid, dumb border wall.
Radical open border politicians are wrong. Save America. Vote change.
I'm Carrie Lake, and I approve this message.
Time to help people customize and save with Liberty Mutual. Forgot my wallet.
For months, we have heard Democrats desperately proclaiming that witnesses have told this committee that Joe Biden had no involvement in his family's business dealings. But where are those witnesses today? It's telling. Democrats haven't invited one of these witnesses to today's hearing. That's because they know their testimonies would not withstand public scrutiny. Democrats have relied on these witnesses' opening statements and have willfully turned a blind eye to the facts that have come out in these interviews once the witnesses were questioned about our record of evidence. Democrats now must rely on bringing in a distraction witness to talk about nonsense, and who can't talk about any of the facts brought by today's witnesses who worked with the Bidens. Now, President Biden cannot control his adult son. He cannot control his brother, his sister-in-law, or his 9 family members who have received money from these transactions. All President Biden can do is control his own actions. And that is what we are here today to discuss with the witnesses. Because in the course of this investigation, we have learned that Joe Biden has taken action after action to further his family's plans to get rich. He shows up to meetings, gets on phone calls, shakes hands and tells people to, quote, look after my family. He goes to dinners with foreign oligarchs and a Ukrainian executive paying his son millions of dollars. He gets paid with money from Chinese businessmen who he has meetings with and tells other business associates he'll see what he can do to help their situations. He writes letters of recommendation for foreign business associates' children. The scam is simple. The Biden family promises they can make a foreign partner's problems go away by engaging the U.S. government. The problems can be anything: a Ukrainian corruption investigation, moving Russian money to the United States, a Romanian criminal prosecution, access for China to American energy sources. Joe shows up, shakes a few hands in front of his son, and says, quote, "Take care of my boy," or something similar. And the money flows to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. It's done over and over again. The Biden family promises Joe's power. Joe Biden shows up, and millions of dollars come into the Biden's pockets. Joe Biden is the family's closer. How could he not be? The Bidens aren't doing any other work for these foreign companies that would warrant tens of millions of dollars. There are only two explanations for this. The first is that Joe Biden knows exactly what he's doing and knows a handshake, a wink, and a smile is enough for him to maintain, as Jim Biden famously calls it, plausible deniability. Or Joe Biden is being led around by his family and has no idea who he's meeting with or what message he is sending, and is truly an elderly man with a poor memory. There's no other explanation. Either Joe Biden is complicit or Joe Biden is incompetent. Since becoming chairman of this committee in January 2023, I've promised the investigation into the Biden family's influence peddling would be based on bank records, witness testimony, and verifiable facts. After years of Democrats using this committee as a mouthpiece for every conspiracy theory they could find, like the Russian collusion hoax, under my leadership, the committee has returned to real investigations. If Democrats want to spin another Russian hoax, I will ask them to answer one question. What services did the Bidens provide to earn them and their business associates over $24 million? What did they do for the money? Democrats have the same bank records as we do, and bank records do not lie. The witnesses today are here to talk about Joe Biden. Republicans are here to talk about Joe Biden. If Democrats wish to spend their time beclowning themselves with another Russian collusion hoax for the sake of protecting President Biden, they can do so. As I said I would, I've invited Hunter Biden here today to sit alongside his business associates and provide his side of the story. Hunter Biden demanded a public hearing. I've given him one. Maybe he will show up. He has said he isn't, but he loves saying one thing and doing another. At some point, Hunter Biden saying one thing and doing another begins to reflect poorly on his ability to tell the truth at all. But this hearing is not about Hunter Biden. This investigation is not about Hunter Biden. It's about Joe Biden and the lies he continues to tell the American people. With that, I yield to Ranking Member Smith, or Chairman Smith.
Thank you, Chairman Comer and Ranking Member Raskin. From the beginning of this investigation, we've made clear that we will follow the facts wherever they lead. The facts have led us to two conclusions. One, the Biden family has for years traded on Joe Biden's name in order to rake in millions of dollars, often doing so with his direct knowledge and clear involvement. Two, President Biden has been continually dishonest with the American people about his knowledge of his family's business dealings. We have testimony from multiple witnesses that Joe Biden was the brand. He knew what his son and brother were doing and did nothing to stop it. That alone makes him complicit in a scheme to make money off of his public service. But he was not just complicit. He was, as one of today's witnesses has testified, an enabler of this activity. The evidence of the two IRS whistleblowers who came to the Ways and Means Committee has been affirmed by volumes of material provided to Congress, by the testimony of others, and even by the Department of Justice, who finally brought charges against Hunter Biden that mirror those called for by the IRS investigators. The evidence obtained shows that, one, Joe Biden met with his son's business partners on multiple occasions. He used an alias to exchange dozens of emails with his son's bookkeeper. He took official government action that suspiciously coincided with those meetings and correspondence. The connections between Joe Biden and his son's business practices extended even to the Biden 2020 campaign. At the height of the Democrat primary, Kevin Morris, a Hollywood lawyer who met Hunter Biden at a Joe Biden campaign fundraiser, paid off Hunter Biden's tax liabilities because there was, in his words, quote, risk personally and politically. If that matter was not swept under the rug, Investigators that were interested in pursuing a potential criminal campaign violation were told to stand down. The Biden family relied on the Biden brand so much that evidence has revealed that Hunter Biden believed that, quote, all this stuff, meaning his legal troubles, would all go away when his dad became president. Why did he believe that? Because for years, the Biden family has personally benefited from Joe Biden's position of power. Joe Biden knew this, he did nothing to stop it, and he lied about it. I yield to Jim Jordan. Chairman Jordan.
I thank the gentleman. Who planted the pipe bombs on January 6? Nobody seems to know. Who leaked the Dobbs draft opinion? You know, the leak that led to an assassination attempt on Justice Kavanaugh. How about this one? Who left cocaine at the White House? Biden administration doesn't seem to have time to answer these questions. They're too busy investigating parents at school board meetings, labeling Catholics extremists, retaliating against whistleblowers. They're too busy putting together a sweetheart deal for Hunter Biden, a deal that got laughed out of court. And the guy who put together the deal that got laughed out of court, that's the guy they name special counsel. You know what Democrats do have time for? Going after President Trump. They've been doing it for 8 years. They spied on his campaign. Then it was the Mueller investigation, 19 lawyers, 40 agents, $30 million, and found nothing. Then it was impeachment. Then it was raid his home. Then it was the special counsel. Then it was the 14th Amendment. The party of democracy said, we're going to keep the guy off the ballot who's leading in every single poll. The ranking member said that President Trump should be disqualified from even running for office. Thank goodness we have a Supreme Court who disagreed with the ranking member and the Democrats. 9-0. Not 5-4, not 6-3, not 7-2, not 8-1, 9-0. They disagreed. Now Democrats say, how dare Republicans investigate Joe Biden? How dare they look into the money, the business, and the brand? Millions of dollars, as the chairman said, millions of dollars from foreign entities run through 20 different companies for what? 20 different companies for what? Devin Archer told us what it was for. Access to the brand. And the brand was Joe Biden. The brand that played rounds of golf, took calls and meetings, attended lunches and dinners with Hunter Biden and his business partners. The brand that said, the brand that conditioned $1 billion of American tax money on the firing of the prosecutor pressuring the company Hunter Biden sat on the board of. And by the way, was getting paid $1 million a year. Today, we're going to learn more about that brand. We're going to learn more about what Mr. Galanis called the Biden lift. We'll learn about the plausible deniability that Jim Biden talked to Mr. Bobulinski about. And we'll hear about the statement, the rule that governed how the business operated around Joe Biden. The rule that said, say it, forget it, write it, regret it. So I want to thank our witnesses for coming here today. They, like the whistleblowers who came to the Ways and Means Committee, are doing it simply because they want the American people to have the truth. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes the ranking member for 12 minutes for his opening statement.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very kindly. With any luck, today marks the end of perhaps the most spectacular failure in the history of congressional investigations, the effort to find a high crime or misdemeanor committed by Joe Biden and then to impeach him for it. In prior hilarious episodes of this long-running madcap series, America got to see the following. 1, nearly 20 fact witnesses who could not identify a single act of wrongdoing by President Biden, much less a high crime and misdemeanor, and who overwhelmingly testified that Biden was not involved in any of his family's business adventures. 2, 3 expert witnesses called by the majority itself who said nothing that they had seen in the tens of thousands of pages of documents adduced by the majority even remotely approached the level of a high crime and misdemeanor. Bank records which show exactly what all the witnesses told us, that Joe Biden was not involved in his family members' businesses. Repeated voyeuristic displays of pornographic images by the majority, completely irrelevant to any conceivable legislative or investigative purpose. A star witness, Gal Luft, who turned out to be a Chinese agent and an illegal arms trafficker on the run from American justice. And the key piece of evidence, which launched the entire zany goose chase, an FD 1023 form in which the FBI duly recorded a completely fictional tip about a $5 million bribe to Vice President Biden, peddled by Alex Smirnoff, who has been criminally indicted by a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, Special Counsel David Weiss, for felony counts of systematically lying to the FBI and constructing a false record about Joe Biden, and now sits in jail in California as a flight risk while the world studies his long-standing and extensive ties to Russian intelligence. Today, the good chairman and his ace MAGA detectives have finally jumped the shark. The comedy of errors comes crashing to an end as House Republicans in more than a dozen Biden districts beg for mercy, and the committee throws a flabby Hail Mary pass 3 weeks after the Super Bowl's over. So today, we revisit the fruitless testimony of two more fading star witnesses who have failed to testify to any presidential wrongdoing, much less evidence of high crimes and misdemeanors. Both of the majority witnesses are frustrated would-be business partners of Hunter Biden, who tried to leverage the Biden name, or the Biden brand, as they keep calling it. But they never got any business off the ground for reasons that will become painfully obvious to anyone watching the proceedings today. Even Hunter Biden, laboring at the time under a serious substance abuse addiction, could tell these were not the type of people he should be doing business with. So rather than representing the Biden brand, which was their ardent wish, they now show up today as loyal servants of Trump world, each of them proudly represented by their very own former Trump White House attorney. The first is Mr. Bobulinski, the bitterly disappointed wannabe Hunter business partner whose famously litigious history includes unsuccessfully suing his own dying father's charity for nearly $1 million. And just last month, suing Cassidy Hutchinson for $10 million after she reported that Mr. Bobulinski, wearing a ski mask, met with Mark Meadows, which Ms. Hutchinson has now backed up with actual documentary photographic evidence, something in very short supply in this investigation. Mr. Bobulinski made his hazy allegations against the Bidens public for the first time at a press conference choreographed by the Trump for President campaign, which provided him a venue, a gaggle of journalists, and even a dress shirt that they went out and bought for him to wear to the event. Hours later, Mr. Bobulinski joined the second 2020 presidential debate as Donald Trump's personal guest, where he was seated with Kid Rock and Mark Meadows. The other star witness, Mr. Galanis, who I believe is appearing by Zoom today, is a serial fraudster and convicted con man, a term I would charitably not use on a witness, except it was explicitly bestowed upon him by not one but two different U.S. federal district court judges, including the one who sentenced him to over 15 years in prison for defrauding union pension funds, a Native American tribe, and scores of innocent investors. Mr. Galanis was sentenced to pay restitution of over $80 million to his victims. That's a lot of money. That's what Donald Trump was sentenced to pay E. Jean Carroll for in that civil litigation. The very first record of Mr. Galanis' claims against the Biden family appeared, check this out, in the clemency petition that he sent from prison to President Trump. But the key point is this: even if we were to believe every single word offered by these utterly compromised and biased witnesses, Mr. Bobulinski and Mr. Galanis, their allegations don't identify any wrongdoing, much less an impeachable offense by President Biden. With the impeachment bus running on empty, our GO colleagues now are apparently preparing to save face by ending the impeachment farce with criminal referrals. But criminal referrals require evidence of crimes. And the only crimes we have seen are those of the GOP's own star witnesses, like Russian asset Alex Smirnoff, Chinese agent Gal Luft, Devin Archer, and Jason Galanis. The minority witness today, our witness, Lev Parnas, casts a piercing light on what's really taking place here. And Mr. Parnas has reason to know. He, too, used to be a mega sycophant peddling lies and disinformation to smear Joe Biden. Today, he joins a long line of self-exiles from Trump world who could no longer stomach all the corruption and deceit. People like Cassidy Hutchinson, people like Michael Cohen, Sarah Matthews, Alyssa Griffin, General James Mattis, the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, General John Kelly, and now Vice President Mike Pence, who refuses to endorse for president the man he served with. But we do have loyal sycophants still in the room, and one day I look forward to hearing their testimony about how they got sunk into this religious cult. Mr. Parnas wrote Chairman Comer and me a remarkable letter on July 23rd, 2023. This is the first time I'm meeting him today. He was Rudy Giuliani's right-hand man, his globe-trotting business partner and language interpreter in the mission to manufacture Ukraine and Burisma-related dirt and smears against Joe Biden in 2018 and 2019. He spent all of his time traveling around the world trying to stage evidence against Joe Biden. In his letter, Parnas explains that the desperate search to find evidence of any kind of Biden corruption was a complete and total bust because there was no evidence to find. He wrote to tell us that not only is there no evidence in Ukraine that Joe Biden did anything improper, but more darkly, the manic search for a smoking gun against Biden became a mission to invent and concoct evidence out of thin air with the active help of Russian intelligence assets and agents. A man, I'm getting to Russia. You haven't heard anything yet, Mr. Chairman. A man who has reckoned with his own moral descent into Trump world, Lev Parnas, is ashamed of what he did to serve the interests of Russian propaganda and Putin's lies. And he wants America to know the truth. He can explain how the Russian-stimulated conspiracy theories and lies that he promoted with Rudy Giuliani live on in the tiresome fabrication spread by Alex Smirnoff and now repeated by this committee like Pavlov's dog. At every turn, my colleagues cry Russia hoax, even in the face of repeated warnings from Donald Trump's own Treasury Secretary and Secretary of State, from the intelligence community, from Robert Mueller, and most recently from Special Counsel Weiss, who was named to office by Donald Trump. As Secretary Mnuchin stated, quote, Russian disinformation campaigns targeting American citizens are a threat to our democracy. That's Secretary Mnuchin, someone that you guys usually defend, but my GOP colleagues continue to cry